Okay? Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And happy Girls Who Print Day. It's Girls Who Print Day here at the Printiverse at Print 18. Shout out to Mary Beth Smith at home. Shout out to a very smiley Wynn Franson. You're always smiling, sir. It's a pleasure to see you there. This panel is called Course Correction. Is your workflow flowing? And it is going to take the position from a very specific point. We're going to assume that the people we're talking to answering these questions are coming from the standpoint of, if it ain't broke, why should I fix it? That they think everything's cool, they're making some money, and we're going to explain to them how they could potentially do better with a workflow course correction, okay? To make it, a little less, workflow. So, based upon that, how can a printer know if they have maximized the profit on their jobs? This is going to be, we're doing it a little different this year. It's just kind of open. First person I see who's like, I'll take that, can go.
Sure.
You can pull it out. Jonathan.
I know.
Jonathan,
Oh, you want me to pull it out?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you know that you have maximized the profitability of your job is the question.
Of
right?
your jobs.
Of
yes.
your jobs. And so who here was here before when we talked about pie? Anyone? All right. Well, we all like pie, but I'm kind of fond of cake. And David Day gave me this great, he's our workflow expert at Solimar, he gave me this great acronym. So how you know if you've maximized your profit in your workflow is, think about cake and eating it too. Have you commingled your jobs? Are they actually manageable and in the right order and giving you the most optimal flow through your workflow? Is it automated? That's the A. If it is not automated, you have problems because you have sneakernet. That means you're spending FTE time. You're spending valuable time. You could be doing more important things, doing manual processes. So then you have K, which is, do you have kick-ass software? If you do not have kick-ass software, you have a problem, and you are not getting the most profitable part out of your workflow that you can. And then E is what Deborah said earlier today. And what was E, Deborah?
Execution.
Execution, exactly. Are you executing your workflow to the benefit of your customer experience and your team within your environment? Because if you are not, you are leaving money on the table. So I'll let other people talk, but that is cake, and that is how you have your cake and eat it too.
Thank you. Stephen, I know you're from Canada, so you won't be aggressive. I'll just call on you.
I think that everybody should assume that they're not getting the most profit out of every job. I think if that's your starting point, that you'll be better off, because you will always, you need to have a culture of continuous improvement. And so I would turn the question on its head and just encourage everybody to doubt what they're doing now and look for ways to improve it. If you can just eliminate one touch point on every single job that you've got going through the shop, you're going to improve your profitability. You cannot touch a $500 job 10 times and expect to make money. How can we reduce those touch points? And that's where the profit is.
Thanks. Canon.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to build on that because I think that's very important. It all starts with really understanding your workflow, right? So you think you're maximizing it, you have some software, you have some tools, things seem like they're running well. But what I find when I have conversations with a lot of the shops, they really haven't documented their workflow. And if you haven't documented your workflow, you're not able to really pinpoint those areas that really could be bottlenecks. Bottlenecks means dollars, right? So at the end of the day, it's really spend the time working with partners. I think anybody on here on this panel would agree. Invest in the time, understand your workflow, because that's where it all begins. And then software, other efficiencies can come to play.
Mick, g'day.
G'day. It's good to see that you've got your g'day down pat now.
I'm trying.
So I'm going to just expand on what the other gentlemen have said. I'd say the most important thing is to map out your workflow and look at redundant steps. Because what tends to happen is along the way you build in steps to counter the inadequacies of the system. And these redundant steps tend to get built into the future workflows for no other reason than we've always done them. And to me, that's one of the worst things that can happen to your workflow. I talked to people yesterday about their workflow, and they had a 20-year-old flow that had never been updated, bits and pieces added to it, and as we discussed it, there was about half a dozen steps just in the initial consultation that we could remove. And you go, that's a half a dozen steps,
Right.
but that's redundant time, that's the chance of double entry of data, the chance of error. Touch points can be error, so it's a matter of mapping it out, looking at it and saying, I no longer need that step.
So, Mick, I just want to stay with you for 1 second, because that's actually this exact point. Up until they walked into your booth, they thought everything was fine. And then what was the epiphany they had that made them say, maybe not so much?
So these guys actually knew that it wasn't fine. They brought in some young blood that had come in and said, why do we do the things we're doing? But because they didn't have the experience, they weren't taken seriously enough.
Right.
And it was actually fantastic. Two young girls that were the leaders here, and we demonstrated to them, and then they brought the seniors back, and they were like evangelists for us.
Right.
Because they saw in our software that we could meet the needs, and it was just fantastic to see that.
Tun.
Right, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So the only thing I can add, I think, is that you can have the margins that you want. You can have them today, but it doesn't mean that 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, they're still competitive. So it's about continuous improvements, and to do so, you need to measure. You need to start measuring now to be able to keep improving in the future. So you can't start measuring the moment you're thinking about changing it. I think the moment to start measuring is when everything is going well. And then in the future, if you need to improve, you have your measurements and you can build on that.
So if you have been on my panels before, then you might recognize the gentleman in the front row with the antennas. We lovingly refer to Jamie McLennan as Jamie the Printer. And Jamie the Printer comes here with Team Printiverse, and he watches all the panels for me, and he helps me keep you guys honest, because I don't know, I'm not a printer, I'll never know if what you're saying manifests the way you say it does in the real world. And also Jamie has real life problems with as far as he's in the trenches and we're not, With that, Jamie knows all the panel topics, and he's been collecting questions from his peers and people in his shop, which is Allegro Princeton. I've said it right now like 5 times in a row. And so in a lot of ways, the questions that Jamie asks are the most important because they're from real people. So Jamie, hopefully you have a question for the panel.
Good morning. Yes, what we find is we love our workflow, everything great, portal goes through, no problem. Some of the projects, larger projects, maybe VDP, some of the RIP systems on the equipment, it seems what slows it down. Will your products help with that, pinpoint that? Give us a couple ideas on how to sort that out.
Anybody? I mean, here, this is a great example.
I'm just going to pounce right on it, Deborah.
A little lower.
All right, a little lower. See, I'm too excited, Jamie. So you said RIP system, and I'm assuming you're using a specific kind of file workflow, so you're having trouble with it taking too much time going through your process. So especially around PDF, which we see a lot of printers using in their workflows today, this is why, like Solimar, we've been based on PDF for a long time in our workflow. We sit on the committee for the PDF standards. And actually here at the show, we announced this year a new PDF optimization module that specifically is to help clean up those files. And the reason we developed it was for inkjet, for making sure that our customers that have a multifaceted shop can send those files through the various DFEs or digital front ends and the RIP systems so that they don't bog down and the machine doesn't clutch or slow down. And so this is a really exciting thing and a really exciting time for us, I think, because we know a lot of customers who are getting what are quote unquote print ready files that are not going through their workflows because they are slowing down or they're having size problems. So subset fonts, cleaning that up, caching of images so you don't have the same image 18,000 times through your job. Those are all the things that this new module will provide, and it should be in market here next month.
Thanks so much. Anyone else? Yeah? Mick and then Canon?
So just to add to that, in our workflow, we work with InFocus right next to us. For instance, a customer would come in onto a portal for PrintIQ, upload their file. If they're a prepaid customer, they'll pay via payment gateway. If they're an account, it'll go straight through an account. But what will happen is within our flow, it'll be mapped to a full switch pit stop workflow, and it'll go down, and based on the rules you've got configured, it'll pre-flight the file for the ability to print. Is it 300 DPI, CMYK, the standard stuff, and then it's going to run it against our XML to see, is it a 10 by 8, is it 2 pages? All of that stuff will be picked up then, and it'll be reported directly back to the customer. And if it's correct, it'll say, congratulations, your file's ready to print. Now remember, your business hasn't got involved in this process. So this is being done, the customer's got it. Now if it fails and we pick up something wrong, we're going to flag that back to the customer and say, hey, your job's come through and it's okay, but there's some warnings, and they can read them. What we've done is we've simplified the warnings. We don't want to go back and say something like the XY coordinate doesn't equal no one gets it. So instead we said, we expected a 10 by 8, we've received a 4 by 4. What would you like to do? And then what they can do is either resubmit a file, or there's a contact your account manager button. They can do that, which tags one of our guys to call them, or one of your guys to call them and say, can I give you a hand? If everything passes, we proof it automatically, send it back to them with the proof, they approve it, and the job moves from pre-production into production. Now again, if you're on a sheet fed shop or a traditional, well then you're going to get an operator potentially picking it up. But if you're in a digital environment and we're going to go down to a digital device, we might go down and work with one of our other partners like Ultimate and automatically impose it, and we're going to end it right up at the DFE. If we're using a HP device, we'll go through Box. HP Box will take it, they'll pre-flight it, they'll impose it, they'll push it right to the front end. So that's the way to get your optimized workflow. You don't touch it, and it just arrives at your machine, and the first time you need to know about it is when your operator puts in the paper.
Can you just hand that to the Canon guy, Kevin?
Thank you. I think it's pretty simple. Garbage in, garbage out, right? So we cannot, in this world that we live in, a high automation, assume that what we're going to get is going to work. I think the panelists have already stated some very good points. From a Canon perspective, we work with the partners like Pitstop and One Vision with their Assura product. The key is to build into your steps of your workflow a process of pre-flighting, making sure that ultimately at the end of the day, that PDF that's flowing is optimized for the output. Right, I can talk about imposition and do all that. I mean, there's that's really a whole nother story behind it. Garbage in, garbage out, pre-flight, pre-flight, pre-flight.
Anyone else have a comment on this? Stephen, yes.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think the key is a real tight phrase, let the rip rip. Try and take anything away from the rip other than that. So that means that the upstream systems are taking care of things. So whether it's get to your iGen, get to your Indigo, let the rip by the likes of an Enfocus or a Smart Stream or a Free Flow, taking care of as many of those steps as possible.
June?
Yeah, just something small to add, because you said exactly what I would say. But the garbage in, garbage out is not only about the PDF. It's also about the data that you use to automate. Structure your data correctly. Make sure your data is structured, and garbage data also means garbage automation. So structure your data, clean up your PDF correctly, and that's what I would add.
All the printers are like, the data. With the assumption that everyone's goals is to help printers maximize profits by minimizing touches, where do you stand on digital storefronts, and do you or your partners provide any software solutions for that?
So we find that really important. From a accessibility standpoint, we want to make sure that you interact with your customers. And again, I don't want to go straight down just my product path, but I will.
I think it's appropriate.
Well,
We-
that's what you're here to tell them how you can help them.
So we've got, by default, anybody that gets PrintIQ has a web portal. It comes standard functionality. So as soon as you set up your factory environment, you configure the factory and what's available. Now you can expose that out to every customer to come in and quote on your business. But what you can also do for your higher end customers is you can brand your portal to suit them. Not only brand it to be their brand, but you can give specific products that only they see. And it doesn't just have to be print products, it can be pick and pack products as well. So for instance, someone can come on and see a site that is their site, branded for them, only the products that they're interested in. When they quote, submit their jobs, pay for them, they can then track them online in a more simplified workflow. It's been accepted, the files have passed, they're in production, they're finished, they've now been shipped. Here's the con note, track them all the way to the door. They don't have to call you. So they can interact with your business without taking your staff, but they can also come in and look at a history of their jobs. So they could look at what jobs have I done in the last week, month, year. They can get graphs of what jobs they've got in progress. So when they log onto that portal, how many quotes have they got out at the moment, where their jobs are. They can pull down invoices, they can pull down artwork. So the idea is you give them accessibility, you then become a 24/7 operation without having to have staff there the whole time.
And just you kind of glanced over is it important? I mean, quite frankly, this is one of my subtext questions because I'm hoping that all of you guys are going to tell the printers out there they must have a digital storefront.
Okay, so the only reason I didn't say it was important is I thought it's so obvious it's important that
It's
everybody
not.
now realises. It's just, it's such a big factor. In fact, it's a big part of our pitch when we demo. Here's what separates us. We give you this accessibility. Because again, a lot of people have got other things they're doing and they don't get time to get in touch at 9 to 5. They can contact, they don't have to contact you.
Yeah.
They've got access to your business. So important.
It's actually, I mean, if you watch the commercials for Vista Print, they literally say that. I don't want to order print during working hours. I want to do it whenever I want to do it.
Yeah.
And this is the only place that I can do it because I don't have to talk to anybody. Canon?
Yes, Deb. So it's absolutely important, right, for you to be able to grow your business and be able to take in more work in a more efficient fashion. It all starts at the job submission step, right? And that's the step where our friends at PrintIQ and the partners that Canon currently partners with. We partner obviously with EFI and their DSF. We also do have some partnerships with RSA for implant type of workflows. The key with Canon, we look at it as you should have a storefront, and we're going to help you integrate it into our framework. So our goal at Canon is really to have the framework and help integrate the solutions like storefronts into the workflow. So that's what I have to add there.
Jonathan? Solimar?
So Solimar, as we talked about before, sits in a very different spot, but we believe in digital storefronts. So yes, go get one and find your favorite, whether it be PrintIQ or otherwise, and then let us help you integrate that in the back end.
Right.
Because where Solimar will sit is past that point of the process, so we don't compete in that space. We augment it and complement it, and we fully believe in it. Something just to add about Solimar is we work in a variety of spaces, and for those who know bills and statements and transactional mortgage statements, health, EOBs, we do a lot of that work as well, which is very different from some of the companies on the panel. So we sit kind of under the covers, and we love to work with everybody on the panel.
Cool. Stephen?
I think it's absolutely imperative that you have that front-end communication portal for your customer for a couple of reasons. One, it's all about making it easy for your customer to do business with you, right? That you're the print shop that never closes because they can always come and they can order something. But one of the greatest challenges print shops have today is what I refer to as micro orders, very small orders which are difficult to onboard. You can have someone sitting all day long just pounding to get this thing ticketed and get it into the system. But if you've got that web portal, you get your customer to do the heavy lifting. They're going to completely submit that job. What's the quantity? What substrate do I want? Give it a WYSIWAG, what you see is what you get version of a web portal. And when they hit the big green button, have it automatically create the job in your MIS system like an Avanti. So the onboarding is done automatically. It automatically gets ticketed, and then the MIS can pass it down to the pre-press level, or right down to the Canon engine as an example, right to the fiery rip. It's all set to go. And again, now we're back to let the rip. You can get with these micro orders, you can get to a point where no one has to touch that job till it's in the output tray.
I visited a print shop, and the first time anybody touched a job is when the postman came to pick it up and put it in the 18-wheel truck. By the way, that's what picks up from this place, because they just do online orders for a major photo thing out there, and it's fully automated. No humans touch anything. I mean, belts drive things around. It's absolutely incredible. Toon, digital storefronts.
Yeah. So I think everything is already said about digital storefronts, but I mentioned the structured data, and that's the first way to get structured data in your system. Yeah. So getting structured data in your system, having a storefront, is the way to start your whole process with having structured data from the beginning. So that's it, I think.
Okay, but you say more about Enfocus, because everybody said a lot about their stuff, and you say something about your stuff, and then we'll stop.
Okay, so we had Enfocus. We have Pitstop with this PDF quality control, and a lot of them here also integrate with it. But we also have Switch, which is an automation platform, and it's out of the box. The power of Switch is really the integration. So we integrate with a lot of software, a lot of storefronts. So we love the open evolution, or the evolution of open APIs and scripting interfaces and all these kind of things. And we make sure that everything that you have can be linked and integrated with each other. So we make sure that all the data that you have is linked and structured and can be used through your entire workflow.
Thank you so much. And Enfocus is part of our podcast family. So I have a lovely podcast with Toon on the launch of Switch and the pit stop and all of the other team there. And thank you, gentlemen, so much. All the information about all the alliance is available in our Printiverse program, which is on the chairs. I'll give you a little blurb about what they do, their websites, their booths here. You can completely stalk them after and follow them back to their booths. They like that a lot. I like it too, because then they come back next year. Today is Girls Who Print Day. Happy Girls Who Print to all the people who work in your companies that are Girls Who Print. Maybe we'll see a few more of them on the panels next year, just saying. Next up in a few minutes, we have the Digital Advantage. Empower your print shop with inkjet, and there's still some coffee and refreshments here for anyone who can